right behind us is a 1,000-foot cliff. I mean, who would be crazy enough to film in a location like this?
All right, all right. Everybody's pointing at me.
I mean, if the shoe fits.
All right, maybe it's true. Maybe it's true.
Go.
All right, Tabitha. So, do you remember the very first time I put you on the edge of a cliff when we were filming a movie?
Do I remember? How could I forget? Okay, Gary. Yes, this was during our filming of our movie Sanatorium. And I had long black hair at that time. I used to dye my hair dark. And I remember Gary having me in this little flowy outfit, and I stood right by the edge of this cliff. I didn't look down, and I saw the footage of this obviously later on, and I was surprised that I was so close on the edge of this cliff. So Gary and I don't recommend that people come out to places like this to stand at the edge of a cliff for like social media and things like that. So Gary, explain why.
You know, people have died, a lot of people actually, falling off the edges of cliffs, shooting photos for things like Instagram and whatnot. And it's a really bad idea. Why on earth would you risk your life for a photograph for social media? It makes no sense whatsoever. We take precautions. One of those is my 15-foot rule, okay? Especially with Tabitha, I'm a rock climber. I've done adventuring my entire life. I feel very, very comfortable. However, Tabitha hasn't, and any other talent I'm working with, I'm never going to put them right next to a cliff. No way. 15-foot rule. They are not allowed to be within 15 feet of that cliff, because if they just trip or accidentally stumble over, they're not going to fall off the cliff if they're 15 feet away. Don't do it. Don't get on the edges. It's not worth a photograph to die. Now, where we are is perfectly safe. We're 15 feet from the edge. If I just suddenly fell over right here, I'm not going to go over the edge, okay? And a lot of times what we do with our shoots too is we position them such that the angle makes it look like you're right on the edge, but right below them, out of camera view, is a little safety ledge where if somebody did fall, they would hit that ledge and they're not going to die.
Okay, Gary, how about that time where you had me on the edge of a cliff for our film Lake Lucifer?
Yes.
And then we had that giant storm that came in. Why don't you tell everybody about that one?
So we were filming Lake Lucifer, which is one of our movies, and it's really wild. It's surreal. It's an epic piece. It's very strange. And we had Tabitha again on the edge of this cliff with this kind of flowy thing. Really, really beautiful. But this is a very good example of why you've got to really watch the weather as well, because it was in the summer and the monsoons were coming up from down south. And these storm cells, these thunderstorm cells, will come in and just whack everything in sight really fast. In fact, we were on top.
Yes.
And
a big thunder and lightning storm happened, and it got really windy. The sky turned black, and we kept hearing thunder. And we're just like, oh no. And then you look out in the distance, and there's all this lightning, and we're like, oh my gosh. And then the rain.
it was getting
Oh.
closer and closer.
Yes. Well, then the
While
rain
we were
came
shooting.
happening. Yeah, it was.
So as soon as it got to the point where I said, well, we better take cover, there was a little ledge below where Tabitha was. We crawled down onto this ledge and kind of crawled up into this alcove, this like rock cave alcove, to stay protected once, from the lightning, as it went right over the tops of our heads. In fact, I have audio from that. I'll play it right now. So what were you thinking when we were filming Lake Lucifer and that thunderstorm went over the top of our head?
I was thinking, oh crap, I don't want to get struck by lightning. No, that's like a fear of mine. I know there's a lot of strange fears that I do have. Getting struck by lightning is one of them. Because true, you hear stories of people like riding on their ATVs in the desert and then
Golfing.
and they get struck by lightning. Like, why would I want that to happen to me on the edge of a cliff.
Yeah, double jeopardy. In fact, the thing about that was is we were hyper exposed, right? Like you were way up on top. There's not another soul for probably 10 miles from where we were. There was nothing for that lightning to strike but us. And I've got the tripods, I've got these big metal things all over the place. So, and that's probably a bit of an attractor. So yeah, it was pretty crazy, right?
Well, it's a good thing we have the spot satellite transmitter so that if something did happen, we could always just press that button and have the helicopters come in. Although they'd probably be afraid of getting struck by lightning too.
Nah, they would come in. They have no problem with that. But that's actually a really good point, though. We never talk about this. The
No.
fact that when you go prepared, if you're
Yes.
going to shoot in really wild places, especially if you're standing next to a cliff, you need to be prepared. And we have a spot satellite transmitter. So if we ever have an issue and we're stuck and we're trapped, we can't get out, we hit that 911 button and it sends a signal to the local search and rescue, sheriff's department, things like that. And they will send a helicopter. So they'll come and get you. So we always know that we're going to be okay if something really, really crazy happens.
And there's also this: if you have anxiety, like fear of heights, don't do this. It's not good. I've had anxiety throughout my life, little bits here and there. And I gotta say, the first time, the sanatorium time that we went and shot by the cliff, I was okay. I don't know why. But then as we progressed onto other projects, I got weird.
Because you start thinking
I was
about it.
overthinking.
And here's the problem too when it comes to heights, and if people are afraid of heights, is there's this little thing called vertigo,
Yeah.
and sometimes it can kind of sneak up on you, and you could be on the edge of a cliff, and if you suddenly get vertigo, basically your equilibrium sort of spins out of control, you could easily lose a sense of your bearing and where you are, and you could fall over. Plus, if you have lines, if it's a movie and you're delivering lines or whatnot, and you're thinking about lines, you're concentrating on other things, people forget. You'll forget where you're standing, and all if you're right next to the edge and you take one step backwards, you're going to be in trouble. Now, as I just did that, I know I've got 10 to 15 feet behind me, so no problem. I was thinking about that. But if you're not accustomed to being next to cliffs like this, you could easily go right over the edge.
Gary, the Dan Eternal photo shoot that I did with Dan, where we were kind of like hanging over, like he was holding me up by, what was it, by like a rope. And I was acting like I was on the edge of a cliff.
So there's a good example. So, don't be fooled by social media and some of these images you see because we doctor these things all the time. We Photoshop and remove things. That image, and I'll show it right now, of you hanging off the edge and Dan's reaching down towards you. That was doctored. So they were actually up on kind of like this little mini cliff. But in post production, I went in and created that background behind them and then took out the bottom so it looked more severe than it really was. So just because you're seeing images on social media, people right next to cliff edges and whatnot, don't believe it. Don't believe that you need to go out and top that somehow, which is ridiculous. Don't put your life on the line for this and recreate that image in actually a spot where if you do fall, you're going to fall 500 feet or 1,000 feet or whatever it is, right?
Yes, and I believe Dan was probably relieved that we didn't have him standing next to a 1,000-foot drop.
I was hiking up into that canyon, by the way, looking for spots. I was scouting the location.
Yeah.
And I looked down at one point, and Dan was kind of looking up at me, and I could see this look like there's no way he's going to do this shot up there. But I found a safe place. Okay, check this out. The wind just came up the breeze. It's blowing this direction, away from the cliff. But like we were talking about earlier, if the wind was blowing this direction and it just suddenly came up out of nowhere like a zephyr, like a really powerful gust of wind, it could easily just launch us over the edge. Thus the 15-foot rule. That's why we have the rule. If you get knocked down, you're not going to go over the edge.
And as much as we love filming on cliff edges, we also like to film in other really amazing locations, places that most people would never even think of filming in.
It's fun, isn't it? I mean, we're away from other people. They're unique, and hopefully we're filming in places that you're not going to see on everybody's feed. They're original. Our movies like Lake Lucifer is completely twisted and original.
Same with Sanatorium.
Twisted and original and crazy
Yes.
and just whacked. right?
Yeah, yes. And our series, The Traveler.
The Traveler, which is one of our fan site episodics. There's how many have we done? 18 episodes, 19
I think we're at
episodes.
19.
We've done a lot of episodes of The Traveler. We do the same thing. We shoot in these really wild, sort of treacherous, wicked locations. And we do this because they're vibrant and they're full of life and they're different. Anybody can shoot in a studio, but shooting in places like this is a whole different ball of wax, right?
It sure is. So, yay!
Okay, maybe I am the mad scientist behind shooting in crazy places like this, but I love to take us to places where perhaps no one's ever filmed before and or places that are truly sublime and wild and keep you entertained.
Right now, my feet are entertained because they're really, really sweaty. It's that little like nervousness you get when you're right next to 1,000-foot cliff. Yeah, so I have an idea. Why don't we go to a different location so that I can relieve myself of this anxiety?
All right, you head up. Let's get you off the cliff.
Okay.
And I'm going to go look over the edge.
Oh,
Woo!
not again. Not again.
Woo! That is truly scary. All right, it's cold. It's a death drop behind you. We don't want near-death experiences today. Let's do this and let's be safe. Okay.